Tired of boring investments that just sit there? Introducing CS2 skins you can actually use. Okay, no, seriously, because here's the problem. Since the beginning of this year, almost every decent looking skin has exploded in price, and the recent knife trade up made that even worse. So if you want something that looks good in game, holds value, and doesn't already feel late, so I've got you. I analyzed all classified and covered case skins, and I filtered for one very specific thing. Skins that have not drastically gone up in price over the last year, but still make sense as a play skin and a long-term hold. So today, I'm going to show you 10 skins that fit this exact profile. Before we start, quick clarification. When I say play skin, I mean a skin that I would realistically use in game, in factory new or the highest quality, and only on weapons people actually play: AWP, AK, M4s, Deagle, and pistols. Also, when it comes to play skins, I strongly prefer factory new. Not only are factory new skins easiest to resell, they also tend to have the highest percentage yields over time, and in extreme cases like market manipulations or sudden supply shocks, factory new is usually the only wear that benefits. So I'll split these skins into 3 risk categories: low, medium, high risk. Risk here does not mean good or bad. It's based on things like case fundamentals, supply availability, trade up exposure. One important expectation to set before we start: this is not a list of skins I expect to 2x in a year. This is a list of skins that you can actually enjoy using in-game instead of parking money in something you never touch. So let's start with the Desert Eagle print stream. This skin is part of one of the most sought after minimalist skin series. As a play skin, it's extremely easy to justify. It's clean and it works with literally any color loadout. If you don't want to try too hard to impress, but still want something that looks premium in-game, this is a great pick. And about a year ago, the skin was sitting around $88 during the fracture case removal. It peaked at $115, and since then, it has slowly drifted back down and stabilized around the $80 range. What's important is that price has been mirroring fracture case, which is why I'd classify this as a medium risk. Next up is the M4 Black Lotus. Yes, it's not a blue M4 skin, but at least this one leans into dark blue and a black color palette. It's clean, minimal, and if this was Magic the Gathering, Black Lotus would be a very expensive item. Sadly, this is CS2. Right now, this skin comes from the active kilowatt case, and I do not expect this case to be discontinued anytime soon. At the start of the year, the skin was priced at around $20, and even today it is still sitting at roughly $20. It did briefly peak near $40, which is actually a very good signal for future potential. That tells us buyers are willing to pay up when attention shifts. From a risk perspective, I would classify this as a low risk. Here's why. The kilowatt case is near all-time low. The skin has been range bound around $20 for almost 2 years. The CS2 hype cycle has not really rotated into kilowatt cases yet, especially because kukri knives are not that popular. And this is not a skin that will give you a massive dollar gains on a single unit. However, percentage-wise, this becomes much more interesting if you buy multiple copies, especially while the case itself is still underdog. Speaking of kilowatt case, next up is USP Jawbreaker. This one is an insane USP, honestly made for gigachats, and by pure coincidence, I already own it myself. In my opinion, this is probably the best budget USP. It's loud, it's colorful, and yet somehow it's still clean. One of the skins that stands out without feeling messy. Fundamentally, it follows a very similar logic to Black Lotus, because it's also from kilowatt case. But there is one key difference. Compared to Black Lotus, Jawbreaker is simply a more unique skin within its weapons category. At the start of the year, the skin was trading at around $18, then it gradually climbed to $26 and eventually peaked near $37. It's driven by uniqueness and visual identity, which is exactly what you want in a long-term play skin. From a risk perspective, I classify it as a low risk. This is skin you buy to actually use and then quietly let the market catch up. Next up is M4A4 Temukao. This one is must-have skin for any weeb. It has a girl on it, which is something we definitely still do not encounter on this channel, but more importantly, it actually holds up extremely well as a play skin. Now here's why this skin is interesting from an investment perspective. Temukao comes from Revolution case, the same case as AK-47 Headshot. Over the last 3 months, Headshot went from roughly $50 to $170. Temuku did not. Instead, it has been sitting in the $120 range for a long time, it tells us Temukao has not participated in the same hype, despite coming from the same case and being arguably just as recognizable. That creates a realistic catch-up opportunity, especially if attention rotates back into Revolution skins. From risk perspective, I would classify Temukao as a medium risk, and honestly, this skin is so good that I might actually just buy right now. Next up is AK-47 Point Disarray. You probably heard about this one if you follow the CS2 market closely, and if you haven't, here's a quick recap. This skin was one of the first major pump and dump skins of 2025. It started the year at around $30, ran all the way up to roughly $500, and then crashed back down. For the past 5 months, it has been stabilizing in the $80-$90 range. And Point Disarray is an older skin from 2015, and for a pink rarity, the supply is relatively low at 36k skins. To put that into perspective, that's about half the supply of Desert Eagle Print Stream, which is a red covered, not even a classified. Aesthetically, this is a very much love or hated skin. There's no middle ground. From risk perspective, this is a clearly high risk, not because it's bad, but because it's already went through an extreme hype cycle. At this point, there's more risk of depreciation than appreciation in the short term. Now onto the infamous sniper AWP Redline. This is an iconic skin that almost everybody recognizes instantly. It has a clean black and red minimalistic aesthetic, and it has aged extremely well. It's also important to note that this skin is float capped and minimal wear. For the past year, AWP Redline has been remarkably stable, trading at around $75 range for most of that time. It did briefly peak near $130, but since then it has settled back into its previous range. And here's the key difference. AWP Redline comes from the case that is very likely to be one of the first to get fully exhausted over time. At the start of the year, that case was trading at around $4 to $6. Today, it's closer to $8, and yet the skin price itself has barely moved. It tells us case scarcity is increasing, while the skin price has not yet reacted. From a risk perspective, I classify this as a medium risk asset. The upside is not explosive percentage-wise, but downside risk is relatively low. Next up is AK-47 Redline. Just like the previous example, this skin comes from very well-known and established skin series. At the start of the year, Redline was priced at around $120. It then experienced a massive hype cycle peaking near $520 before coming back down. Right now, it has been stabilized at around $200 range, and the reason for that is very similar to what we saw with Point Disarray. AK Redline had a supply of roughly 65k skins, which almost doubles that of Point Disarray. From a risk perspective, this is a clearly high-risk asset, not because it's a bad skin, but because it already experienced an extreme hype-driven move. The upside exists, but it's limited compared to the risk. Then, AWP Ozimov. This is the OG AWP skin. If you know, you know. This skin doesn't really need an introduction. It's iconic, instantly recognizable, and permanently embedded in CS history. At the start of the year, AWP Ozimov was priced at around $125. It peaked near $150, and it's currently sitting in the $110-$115 range. What immediately stands out here is astronomically high supply, sitting at 160k skins. But that number needs context. AWP Ozimov is float capped at field tested, which naturally inflates supply compared to factory new or minimal wear. So while supply is high, it's capped in a different way. From a risk perspective, I'd classify this as a medium risk, boring play. Realistically, you're looking at around like 10-20% upside over a year, assuming no major structural changes. Because of that, I would not buy this skin purely as an investment. Just buy this one if you want a nostalgic play skin. Next up is a holy grail for a lot of players, AK-47 Vulcan. This skin needs almost no explanations. It comes from the Huntsman case, which is currently trading at around $8 and sits among the third lowest supply case in the game. Structurally, that already gives Vulcan a very strong floor. From a downside perspective, this skin is extremely well protected. It is very unlikely to lose value drastically, simply because of where it comes from and how iconic it is. At the start of the year, Vulcan was priced around $680, it peaked near $1,050, and it's currently floating at around $770 range. Because of that, from a pure investment standpoint, there are definitely better percentage plays elsewhere. From a risk perspective, I classify AK Vulcan as a medium risk. If you're looking for maximum percentage returns, this is not it. If you're looking to flex while holding value, this is exactly the move. If you have the skin, you are him. And saving the most aesthetic pick for the last. This one is for the closet weebs. The AK-47 Bloodsport. It's noisy, aggressive, and elegant at the same time. It's covered in text, warning symbols, and somehow it still works. For a covered skin, the supply sits at roughly 65k skin, which is very similar to Desert Eagle print stream. Despite having a similar supply, Bloodsport is almost 3 times more expensive. About a year ago, the skin was priced around $155, it peaked near $350 and had since retraced back to roughly $220. From a risk perspective, this clearly sits in a medium risk category. As an investment, this is not where you hunt for big multiples, but as a play skin, this is absolutely elite. Alright my drillers, it's portfolio update time. Since the last week, my portfolio has stayed roughly in the same range, sitting at around 13k. That said, I've definitely noticed that we're slowly entering either a correction or the early stages of a bear market, especially for high tier items. Since the start of December, there's been a clear downtrend. The market index dropped from around 1,300 to 1,100, and most of that pressure is coming from expensive high-tier skins. The average person probably won't feel this too much, but personally, I'm down about 8% ROI over the last month. Now for this week's moves, my budget for this week is $580. I picked up Desert Eagle print stream and M4A4 Temukao, of course. And with the remaining budget, I'm going heavy into fever cases. If you're wondering why I'm specifically buying fewer cases, check out my video, Most Undervalued CS2 Investment right now. I break down exactly why I'm accumulating them and what the long-term thesis is. So yeah, that's it. Bye bye.